Lorna is one of the very brave people starting a new business in the middle of a global pandemic and doing a boss job of it. So far, they've been running a few new courses. One was the science of stress, and I was lucky enough to go along to that. And yeah, it's just brilliant to have someone who can really bring science into terms that everyone can maybe use practically in their lives. And that's what I've found so amazing about Lorna's approach. But she's also just a generally brilliant human being. And I'm so happy to welcome you along to today's interview.
Ah, you're a sweetheart.
Yeah, one thing that I really enjoyed about doing the Science of Stress course with you was, as I was saying before, how accessible you make a lot of the science around kind of everyday living situations. And I wondered if that was something that you set out specifically to do, or what were your thoughts when you were founding the Good Life School? What was your mission?
Yeah, oh, it's a lovely question. Thanks for asking it. Yes, it was very much about making accessible information, because in my own case, I've always found that my well-being has been enhanced massively through knowledge, through learning. Knowledge is power. So yeah, all that I have learned through my studies and personal reading, I used to draw on to make it an accessible course for people that I thought would benefit them in everyday life.
And I mean, definitely that's my experience. I would be very surprised if you didn't have lots of people saying that it has really helped them to maybe just start to take the first steps towards understanding themselves just that little bit better and trying things. And I think that curiosity is such an important thing. I guess that's like the flip side, isn't it, of the people that come to you, is having an openness to learning more about your habits. Because habits are it's sometimes very difficult to break habits if you don't know that they are habits. And I think that's something. So with the Imagined Bodies project, I guess that's kind of my approach to approaching body image. Is it's not necessarily about the sort of worst places that having negative body image can kind of take you, because there are obviously, it's awful that people end up in disordered eating and eating disorders, or really spiraling with anxiety and depression. Like, that definitely happens. But I think the roots of that are in sort of just casual, everyday sort of negative thought processes. And I guess that even just noticing they're happening can really give you a lot of power. So I wondered your perspective on that.
We are the result of our biographies, meaning everything that's gone before, the experiences we had in the past, the way we perceive things, the way that the past and the present collide in, actually even in the way it's structured in our brains. So when we talk about changing a habit, it's not just a simple case of, saying, oh, I'll stop doing that and I'll start doing this. It could be simple, but more likely than not, a person has a lot of reasons for behaving in the way they behave. Often those behaviors are defense mechanisms. They're there to help us, but they don't always serve us into adulthood. And so changing patterns can really take changing self-understanding and internalizing that new understanding.
I think, man, there's so much that you just said that really hit me, and I actually feel it in my solar plexus. I'm like, oh, yeah, because first off, the first thing that you said was so beautiful, that we are our biographies, and that we are kind of this process of recurring thoughts about who we are, how we choose to show up, how we have acted in the past. It reminded me of a really beautiful quote I came across from a women's circus project in Seattle. And one of the tutors was saying that movement opens the door to the body, and that it opens all of our past histories about ourselves. I was thinking how physical movement does that for me, but part of that can be, again, just unlocking things that, as you say, our defense mechanisms might be patterns we've had for a long time, but maybe don't serve us. So one that would show up for me in my kind of negative self-talk when I was training Circus maybe about 2 years ago when it was really bad, was just this kind of, as soon as I would start training, I'd be like, oh, well, you're not good enough. You can get this, and other people are better at this. Other people are quicker to learn physical things. So, and you aren't. And that's just based on experience, but also on perception of experience, which can be very, very different.
When you were talking about you doing performances or practicing performance and then thinking, oh, you're not good enough. There's the writing of Carol Dweck, which talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Now, I value a lot of what she says there, but I also think that the concepts are quite fixed. In other words, I think that it's not as though a person either has a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. It's just that in some domains, they're more growth orientated, and in others, they feel more fixed because of their pasts. So, for example, I would be really comfortable going and learning a new language, total faith in myself, I can learn languages. But if you got me to do something actually probably more physical, that voice, that negative voice would come in. So where does the negative self-talk come from? Experience comes from the programming of our lives, And so, yes, I do strongly believe that if we want to do something different, change a habit, don't be slamming your head against the wall. This is not about willpower. This is about self-understanding, self-compassion in the terms of Kristen Neff, but also just that's self-awareness that realizes that, we're as human as the next person.
And I wonder if you would say that if you're trying to change a mindset, it's almost better to show up in a totally new practice than to do something you always do. So if, for example, you always feel terrible about yourself when you go swimming,
or play the piano.
Or play the piano, then maybe just trying out that mindset in something that doesn't have all the negative associations.
Yeah, actually, that is one of the key tips that I give in life is, when you are feeling rubbish about something, oh, I'm no good at it, I'm not good enough, lean into the things that come easily for you, that come naturally to you. So if there's something that doesn't have all that baggage, that doesn't trigger the self-criticism, if there's something that's just like joyful and easy and pleasant, do that. And the reason for that is because you're now training your brain, literally laying down new neurons that say, yes, I can. And that sort of mental exercise is going to counter the negative thoughts, which are themselves laying down neurons. We can't undo that process. We can't stop the process. Instead, we need to build new pathways and reinforce those new directions.
And that is a really interesting way to approach it, because I think with a lot, I guess weight loss is one example, where a lot of people end up in the situation where they're told, well, just stop doing that thing because it's bad for you.
Yeah, don't ever try and stop doing something. Not easily anyway.
Yeah, and I guess a big part of the research that I'm doing keeps coming back to the shame that people feel. So evidence that weight stigma in itself is a separate process that has physical effects, lots of them terrible. But yeah, that shame and body, particularly weight stigma, have these terrible effects on people. So it seems really counterproductive to me that a lot of policy and a lot of approaches are very shame-based.
Absolutely.
But then I also think about the flip side of shame, which is to identify something that you aren't good at, that you maybe want to improve at. And for some people, they seem to be able to really just be like, I can't do that yet, and I want to be able to do that. So I will. Or I've decided I really want to go and train, become fitter and stronger, so I'll do that. And for other people, it's just such a place of shame. And why do you think that is? What's the difference?
It comes back to what we were talking about before. one person has not developed a sense of shame over it. They have accumulated experiences that say, oh, I can do this. It's okay. I know that when I put effort into it, things get better. I know it's sometimes tough, but I'm okay. I can handle that. Another person has had multiple experiences or very significant experience that tells them that this is terrifying, scary, unpleasant, painful, perhaps filled with shame. You cannot fault that person for having that reaction to it. Ultimately, how can we help that person just experience it differently, so that when they do it, they're building a positive experience of it and then building in that direction?
Yeah, I'm glad you went there, because that's exactly what I was thinking, listening to you. I was just like, but how do I do it as someone that's teaching a circus class? How do I help people to sidestep some of their shame and their worries about their bodies?
Right. Oh my gosh, I'm sure you're well placed to answer that question yourself. I bet you have loads of techniques and strategies for it. One point is listening to a person and not brushing it off. And if a person says, I feel such and such, as soon as we try to rescue them by saying, oh no, you're amazing, it's nothing, that they haven't in that moment been heard or seen. Instead, it'd be a case of saying, it's horrible feeling rubbish, isn't it? Like, they've been heard then. Oh, I feel rubbish, I've been heard. That in itself dissipates that energy. Another part of it is, as soon as there's something like the can-do experiences, what is it? What's the little components that they've done extremely well? Or are there little situations that can be formed, engineered, where they can demonstrate a good technique? What makes it easy for them to go, oh my God, look what I can do? And then that part as well about well, actually, there's several things, but disclosure, talking about our own difficulties, our own challenges, and even information, how to get over it, like give a strategy. And the final part was the one about community. When you feel rubbish, you isolate yourself typically. No one can stand me, I can't be around people, I'm hopeless. So in those moments, bringing this together, lightening it, making it fun.
That's really, really helpful too. It almost gives the framework of the things that I do instinctually.
And clearly.
The idea of like just small wins for people is built into all of my teaching plans. I always start and end with something that everyone can do, because like that little boost of like, oh, I did it, it's all great, really helps. I always think of that as being about trying to not promote a stress response in people.
When we have an actual physical external danger, our bodies react. We all know about that, fight or flight. Adrenaline, cortisol flood the system, readying our muscles, elevating our heart rate, but also completely restructuring our brain. The memory part of our brain will reorganize so that we have fast access to memories of danger, because that's going to be our safest thing. So we're going to only see things through that, and our prefrontal cortexes go offline. So that means all the executive functions, everything about good decision making, judgment, perception, that sort of thing. So in that moment, you are not yourself. So your body's doing something different, your brain's doing something different. Now I've talked about an external threat. What we're talking about here is that thought in our heads or a feeling that emerges. They are exactly the same thing. It is no different. There's no separate response. Your body simply goes into a full fight or flight response when you think, oh my God, I suck.
Yeah. And why is that? Why does that have so much power over people? Why is it like, I guess that's, you always think about what's the worst thing that can happen in the situation. And it's maybe someone seeing you not do something as well as you wanted to.
But from an evolutionary perspective, that it has a really good rationale, because it wasn't just physical dangers. It was also isolation. Like, humans need humans. We're not a species that can take care of ourselves from birth. We need raising till we're teens, and then we need community. I'm talking historically here, community to be able to survive. If you're on your own, you're bait. So your system recognizes too social exclusion. So if you're having a feeling, oh my God, I feel hopeless, or oh my God, I had an argument with them, you will get that full fight or flight response. It is readying you to address the problem, fix the problem. Otherwise, you're out on your ear from the tribe and it's game over.
Wow. And then when you kind of linked that into the incredible number of different pressures that people have, I feel like there's such a huge list now of things that I'm aware that I should be working on that maybe didn't exist before. So it's quite mind-blowing, isn't it, to think about all of that coming back to that single thought of I have to be useful to this group of people, to my immediate community.
Or can't have conflict.
Yeah, you have to be, it seems to be plugging into that will to try and be perfect at every single thing. And I think kind of looking at maybe like the voice of diet culture through that window, it becomes even more exposing how manipulative it is for companies to tell you new things that are wrong with you, because it plugs into that very primal fear.
It is very unethical. The point is of all marketing to make you feel fearful and insecure so that you will consume. You'll consume the products, and the products could be, products to also manage your body and all those sorts of things in internal capitalism.
Yeah, and that kind of manufacturing demand that the media has been so good at deliberately for decades and decades. It kind of, I sort of remember how bad it is every now and then. It's like, I think it's funny because most people are aware that that's being done, but it sort of doesn't neutralize it anyway.
No.
It takes me back to performing for the first time, maybe about 8 years ago, and I loved doing Circus. It was very much my happy place that I would go to. And then through working in the industry, I started to, just add to the list of things that I should be worried about. And so, I think again, it's funny that I allowed that to happen to me because I was totally aware and I chose it. So I wonder why people choose it.
Well, what I heard in there was self-blame. And what we have to remember is this is not an independent choice. We are constructed by the society around us, and the social political forces around us mean that, this is political. Your body is political. You don't feel bad about it because there's something wrong with you. You feel bad about it because the powers that be have decided it's in their interest for you to feel bad about it. Therapy can be really helpful, but it doesn't mean that it's about the individual. It means that a therapist might be able to help with a bunch of factors, but so will reading feminist literature or anthropology or anything that holds up a mirror to society and says, hang on a second, nothing is the way it seems. Everything is constructed.
I mean, I totally agree with you. But at the same time, it reminds me that the reality is that kind of thin ideal, there are a bunch of tangible benefits that you will experience if you are closer to that ideal. So it's really frustrating because on one side, I can really hold it up and go, that's ridiculous. And it does immunize me to kind of, the day that I realized, why do I think I want to be smaller? What does that actually mean? Does that, like, people find me more attractive and want me more in the room because I'm smaller, I look like I can't defend myself, and I look like I'm younger. What is that? And so that did diffuse it a bit for me. But again, I can totally understand why people want to be closer to a thin ideal, because if you're performing, you get more work. It's tied to your economic potential. So, and then also, I guess there's the whole people feeling that it's easier for them to find a partner or to be attractive to others. It is a hard one to sidestep, isn't it?
It's extremely hard to sidestep, and I would never hold it against a person feeling the brunt of that. But what I am enjoying seeing at the moment is the diversity of body types appearing in the media. And so that helps, that's been years of push from people who activists, people who say, hey, we want to see this variety. And, it's been a long time coming, but once that balance tips, it's everywhere, it explodes. You see it in the very everyday things, like, bank adverts and insurance adverts and things like that. And it's like, okay, so society has responded in this instance. How does that help you get your paycheck every month through working with your physical body? I'd say it's a complex process, because ultimately you've got to wait for society to catch up, and in the meantime we've got to feed ourselves.
Yeah, and it's also, I feel like this, I don't know why I'm drawing this analogy, but I'm a cyclist. I think you're a cyclist. Cycling in Edinburgh is slightly terrifying because the cycle infrastructure isn't there, right? So every single time I go out, I have to be a pioneer for cyclists, and I experience a lot of danger. And some days I have the energy for that, and some days I don't. And that's how I feel about being someone in a slightly less conventional body doing my job. Because some days I feel I have the energy to turn up and be like, hey, I don't care. And I'm going to embody being slightly bigger than you expected when you booked, and I don't mind. But other days, yeah, it can feel hard.
Why should you be the person who's putting the neck out, putting the neck on the line?
Yeah.
Being that constantly fighting the just cause is exhausting. I don't do it on a daily basis. It's not always about change, it's often about acceptance too.
Yes.
The two processes can go hand in hand, and they can also be, I think it's Carl Rogers, the founder of person-centered approach in therapy. He said something along the lines of, only when you accept yourself can you change.
Ooh.
Aye.
See, I really like that. And one question I've been exploring through the research, and it feels like a controversial one, is this concept that you cannot, some movements would say that you don't love your body if you're actively working to change it. And I don't subscribe to that. I think it's really helped me to hear that quote, because that's where I think it comes from, is if you're working to change your body, it really matters where the intention comes from. If that's from a whole place of shoulds and what other people want and what society is going to reward you for, I don't think that it's enough to drive you, because then you're relying, I think you said this earlier, like willpower is finite and we don't have that much of it, and we have to manufacture it from all our energy every single day. That's why, you notice it run out towards the end of a day and like decisions become worse. But yeah, it has to come from a place of acceptance. And I think, radical self-acceptance is hard to work towards, but it's a good goal. It's to me, I guess I think of body neutrality as actually being like a really powerful term as well. And lots of people don't know, but like, oh, can you not be like radically self-loving yourself? But body neutrality to me represents a really great place of not having to expend energy and willpower on worrying about my body and actually just getting on with other things. It's such a paradise to me to just not invest time in that.
So about the people who say, if you change anything in your body, if you work on anything in your body, then it's no good. That's a blanket statement. Everything is nuanced. Life is nuanced. So, by that logic, we could say, oh my gosh, if you walk anywhere, you're working on your body because you're building up your muscles and tone. I think it'd be very hard to make that argument. You said the word intention. Yeah, what are the motivations behind what we do? Do we do it because it's joyful? Do we do it because it elevates our well-being, for our own benefit, and therefore for the people around us. What are these motivations? And even if they are more so-called superficial, if they're for, you know, aesthetics in order to then get paid more for your job, who's going to beat, well, lots of people beat themselves up for that, but why would we beat ourselves up for that? It's wasted energy to do that. We were talking about energy. It is wasted energy to spend our lives beating ourselves up, but you can't just turn that off, you know. So that's when we come into this relationship, this very gentle balance between acceptance and change.
Another thing that sort of seems to be emerging for me, and I'm really interested in it, is that there's that quote, isn't there, that's like, accept the things you can change, you can't change, and, you know, and change the things that you can. And I just have been thinking a lot about how you can subdivide that things you can, because sometimes just because you can change something doesn't mean that you should. And that kind of interrogation of, can I change this? And then what's the cost benefit analysis for me? Like, what will it actually take for me to change that thing? And if me getting the ideal body that people have told me I should have to do my job comes at the cost of all of my social life, all of my mental well-being, every single care practice that I have being out of the window, and ignoring my relationship with my body to push through, then I don't think it's worth it. And I'm happy to accept it as something I'm not going to change. I think that is a difficult step, isn't it? To sort of accept things that you can change. And that's where a lot of that sort of shaming comes from, self-shaming.
Certainly. But I really like that point you make about everyone's individual experience. And I'm thinking about, you know, guys with thick necks in the gym, and, you know, someone might be like, oh my gosh, he's totally overdoing it. Why? Obviously another person will be like, this is amazing, I love it. You know, so there's first of all different social perceptions of it. For some it's really positive, for some it's really negative. But that person who is working on their body a lot, it might be that it seems to come from quite unhealthy reasons. So do we shame them? Do we blame them? Do we criticize them? Absolutely not. All you're going to do is deepen that defense mechanism. So it's going to, you know, get its teeth in and go, oh my God, I really have to. No, like that defense mechanism is there because there's a fear. There's a deep-seated fear that has been there a long time. That needs love, care, compassion, acceptance, empathy. Working with that can then give the person space to reflect on what they're doing and say, is going to the gym 30 hours a week actually good for me? You know? So shame, the literature on shame says it does not work in all kinds of contexts, like, you know, shaming people for smoking outside hospitals by broadcasting tannoy systems, that sort of thing. No good at all. Other incentives for people, not shame.
People seem to be able to give amazing advice to other people, but not to be able to give good advice to themselves. But then I think that there's a lot of wisdom in ourselves that maybe doesn't get accessed. But would you say that the answer always is within someone, or maybe we need others outside us to help shift a mindset if it's stuck?
I was once told by somebody, oh, you don't need to read any books, you know, the answer's within you. And I thought, oh, you know, the point of it all, talking to people, reading fiction, watching movies, reading theory, discussing in groups, experiencing with other people, is that we are then getting so many other perspectives that we can process that and get access to what is already within us. Doing that, we're not in a vacuum, we're in society. And so if we're being negatively impacted by society, you can't just dig away until you find this thing within yourself. It's not a totally independent experience. It is an entirely social experience. So as well as rewiring our brains, the other thing is to get that community, find those role models, watch the things that you aspire to, learn from other people, and then you will look back to yourself and go, oh yeah, the answer was always there. I kind of knew it intuitively.
No.
Our brains are our bodies. You know, in other words, what's happening in your brains when we talk about neurons, neurons are not just like conscious thought. Neurons are also all the unconscious processes that facilitate the functioning of our bodies, from, you know, our hearts beating to our muscles flexing and everything like that. And a lot of the trauma literature is keenly aware of the fact that, you know, our bodies remember, our bodies experience, and it's not like, you know, this arm itself does, but this arm is mapped to my brain. So when this arm feels physical experience in the three-dimensional world, that links back up to the brain, and the brain has a memory. It doesn't necessarily know what it is. It just goes, oh my God, warning, warning, danger, danger. Or, well, comfortable, I love the way this feels, you know. So your body is emotional. It is you.
If we are our bodies, then how can we be more aware of that? And are there benefits to being more aware of that? Well,
I'll speak to my personal experience of becoming more, inhabiting my body more. I would say that, you know, I'm very cerebral, and I've always spent a lot of time in my head. And for example, when I go to see a therapist over the years, you know, it would be very much, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? And I've been taught how to say what's happening in the moment in a very kind of mindfulness meditation way. What's happening? What do you notice? Where's the tension? You know, is there a pain? Is there a warmth? What shape is it? What size is it? What's happening with your heart? All those sorts of things. And so mindfulness is a great way to become more body aware meaning more self-aware, because now all it takes is, you know, I have immediate sense of, oh, I'm uncomfortable here. This doesn't feel right. Okay. No, I don't think this is for me. Whereas in the past, it'd be like, sure, I'll do whatever you want because I'm here to please everybody, you know? And that kind of, those messages that are constantly being communicated by our bodies that we haven't been taught to listen to.
Or we've been taught to deliberately suppress because they don't fit with that. I mean, I'm a recovering people pleaser, as I'll describe myself. So yeah, I completely know what you're saying.
Absolutely. And as a recovering people pleaser, there is all that information. It's there constantly. And for some people, it manifests in different ways. And for me, it's just, you know, my level of comfort, things around my heart rate and my breathing, and like maybe my throat gripping, just saying I'm anxious or something. For another person, it's pains, like a pain in their liver, or migraines, or as it extends, chronic fatigue or other autoimmune and experiences. You know, it's there all the time. It's just that we have been trained to be good boys and girls. Push it down, stay in your head.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about my body in that way before, of like, you know, it's sort of a less intelligent part of me.
Right. And actually, it might be the most intelligent part of us. It maps to the brain again, though. We've got a 3-part structure to our brains. That is sensory. The first part is sensory. It's physical, it's smell, it's touch, it's visual, sensory brain. Second part is limbic, emotional. Third part is all the cortexes, the thinking brain, the cognitive brain. We prioritize, Western thinking has always prioritized this. The sensory brain is utterly intelligent. And this is from someone who's extremely cerebral and absolutely loves all that stuff. But I realize the body is invaluable.